the Game Awards, never devoid of controversy, the events we swear we don't care about, yet can't stop yelling over. The nominees alone deservedly have been criticized to death, but there is one category that I can't help but be stuck on. Best Narrative. Two of them are remakes, one of them has a divisive third act, and another one is outright polarizing. The only nominee here that is original and consistently well received is Metaphor, but it's hard for me to celebrate a victory if it should win by default. That's what encapsulates this year's Game Awards. It makes it seem like there was a lack of competition, when in fact, every month has been full of amazing video games, especially the indies. There could have easily been 6 nominees for both of those categories. I get it. Video games are much longer than films. It's not feasible to play every one of them, let alone the indies. But you know what they could have done? A tiny sliver of research. When a few Google results can form a better list, then maybe there's an issue in the process here. Because even I, someone who doesn't do this for a living, came up with a game immediately that could fill all 3 of these spots. It was a game I hadn't played, but happened to know about thanks to a tiny sliver of research. It was 1000xRESIST, a critically acclaimed narrative from a debut indie studio. The word niche is an understatement. Last I heard, it sold about 25,000 copies, which is good for what it is, but not good enough for the Game Awards to acknowledge it, not good enough for it to care. And why should any of us anyway? We all know it's a popularity contest. It'd be silly to believe that that would ever change. Well, 1000xRESIST ended up showing me why it is still worth yelling about. In this post-apocalyptic dystopia, society is divided into 6 functions like maintenance and healing. Our main protagonist, though, is referred to as Watcher, and as their name implies, their function is to merely watch. To monitor the present is one half of the job, to witness the past is the other. For in order to learn the truth about their society, our Watcher must piece together the venerable memories of a godlike figure known as the All-Mother. By resisting spoilers, I do have to acknowledge that this premise may seem too basic, or perhaps even too generic of a sci-fi narrative. While we're at it with first impressions, this game was primarily developed by a team of 4 people, and it does indeed look and feel like it. The graphics are kinda ugly sometimes, the dialogue isn't animated, there's occasional slowdown, and the Switch version crashed on me twice, one of which was during a very tense moment, so it scared the absolute hell out of me. Given the circumstances, none of that ever bothered me. The question I have is, why is there no mini-map for this deceivingly complicated main hub? I got lost so many times. I would have been hopeless on release day when there wasn't a map at all. Yeah, there is no hiding how low the budget was. And yet still, it is critically acclaimed. Still, this is what I chose to highlight for 2024. If that doesn't speak for itself, then allow me to indulge. 1000xRESIST is a narrative-heavy experience. There are light puzzle and traversal mechanics, but it wouldn't be inaccurate to call it a walking simulator. While that term is often used disparagingly, in this case, the genre is the perfect canvas for accentuating its greatest strengths. The first being the presentation. Despite the jank, the game does a fantastic job at routinely presenting the story in imaginative ways. It is a shining example of how to maximize your budget. It transforms a lack of resources into something fresh every single chapter. None of them feel the same. Besides, I'll take reused assets any day if the trade-off is fully voiced dialogue. Some of the performances may seem awkward at first, but it genuinely ends up complementing how surreal the journey is. Trust me, you won't want to play any sort of battle system. The narrative is just that gripping. It is frequently compared to the likes of Nier Automata, Evangelion, Signalis, and most appealing to myself, 13 Sentinels. If none of that rings a bell, the storytelling is chiefly non-linear. The characters often lie to you, and there are many dialogue choices that appear to be nonsense. To say the least, prepare to be confused. As in the best kind of confusion, where you cannot resist figuring out what the hell is going on. You'll never know what's coming next, and just when you think it's slowing down a bit, it ramps right back up into high gear. That is the magic that holds the story together. The pacing. For a video game, this is the closest you can get to all killer, no filler. And that means a lot coming from me, because as some of you might know, I am awfully critical of pacing. I hate padding, I hate filler, I hate wasting my time. But in 1000xRESIST, you will constantly be learning new ideas that are all meaningful, and even if their meaning isn't apparent at the moment, the narrative exudes so much confidence that you won't have any doubts. It is masterful at refusing to let go of your intrigue. Make no mistake though, this is not a story about jaw-dropping plot twists. It is a story that makes unraveling its twists as compelling as possible. Like I said, maximizing resources. The last thing I'd want is for anyone to dismiss it as shock value or solely pretentious. As quirky as it gets, it never loses sight of reality. Because through all the bells and whistles, the heart of the story is the slice of life. Especially if you're an Asian millennial or Gen Z, it is going to hit hard. The last interaction between mother and daughter is a moment that will stick with me forever. Nothing dramatic, nothing eventful, just a plain conversation. And yet, something that simple felt like the appropriate culmination of everything this labyrinth of a narrative had been building up to. As if no matter how complex the world and its hardships can be, all it takes to illustrate them is a single conversation, a single relationship. Every time I think about it, I tear up. Every time I watch it, I start bawling. In essence, that is why 1000xRESIST is my game of the year. It's not because it made me emotional, it's because for the negligible commitment of 10 hours and $20, I've been made to feel all kinds of resounding, lasting emotions. My thoughts on numerous characters shifted back and forth. Most of the time, I didn't even know how to feel. I just knew that I was engaged and I had to keep playing. And after I finally beat it, I remember lying down on my bed, staring up at the ceiling, and just thinking about it for an hour off the top of my head, writing down themes that deeply impacted me. At least 11 themes that resonated, all working in unison with a nuance that challenges the instinct many players will have. And I admire the hell out of that. It takes a lot of guts to reject that. It is a remarkable piece of fiction that not only respects your time and intelligence, but also earns your respect by not treating it like fiction. Everything it touches is real. From the alienation that comes with immigration, to the inevitability of politics being personal, to the complexity of parenthood, to trauma transcending generations, to romanticizing the past in spite of the abuse, to the obligation of everyone to prevent it from being twisted, to how complacency can foster tolerance for wrongdoings, to how change will always require sacrifice, to the difference between forgiveness and deserving to stay, to the helplessness we feel about the oppression in the world, as if all we can do is watch. When in truth, acknowledgement is the first step to resistance. And while trauma may be persistent, it is only outlived by that choice to resist. For whether we succeed or not, that is what will embolden the next generation. So if it wasn't clear by now, yes, we do care about the Game Awards, even if we don't want to admit it. Even if we don't actually believe that it would ever vastly improve. We care because, like it or not, it's the biggest gaming events of the year with millions upon millions of viewers. We care because it's not about winning for a game like 1000xRESIST. All it takes is the slightest mention for a watcher to become a player. That is the real award. It's happening right now with Metaphor, and it happened for me with 13 Sentinels. We care simply because acknowledgement is powerful. And if a small YouTube channel like mine could even make a single person care about this game, then that to me is a power worth believing.